For that, I'm joined by the host of the podcast Science Rules of Bill Nye the Science Guy. Bill, obviously, hurricanes have been decimating the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico for years. We have historical records of these things happening. What does the science say, and what do we know about the ways in which climate affects these sort of extreme events?
Well, people are continually trying to connect each extreme event with climate change computer models. But it's quite difficult to do. But this we can say, it's how much bigger is a given hurricane now than it would have been before human-caused climate change. So there's all this trouble now with not only the size of hurricanes, but how the winds aloft affect how fast they move. And as has been pointed out by many people over the last few days, it's not the category number that matters. It's just how much rain does it dump for how long,
right,
along with the wind. And so in the good old days, there was not very much infrastructure in the Bahamas or other Caribbean islands because fewer people lived there a century ago or so. But now electrification and the ways of the developed world are making their way into these areas. And so when everything's torn up, it's a mess. And so the people who live there, of course, it's very troublesome. But that's just one example of other places around the world that are going to be affected even more strongly, where they have less ability to travel and change their way of life and so on. So it's a very serious problem. The poor people are going to be affected the most. But look, we're all in this together. You know, New York, Boston, parts of Nova Scotia are being affected by Dorian. I mean, this is a big old storm, everybody.
And there's also the ways in which those areas that are affected, like, as you're saying, the sort of development that they have creates the conditions in which people can adapt or have to move. I mean, when you think about a place like Bangladesh, which is extremely exposed to sea level rise, or places throughout the developed world where farming will be impacted, I mean, it does seem that we will start to see, and already have started to see, big migration movements of folks that cannot live where they currently are.
There you go. And where are they going to go, and who's going to pay for it, and so on and so on. That's why we've been saying for decades, the sooner we get to work on this, the better. To me, climate change, along with all the trouble, fills me with optimism, because we're going to solve problems that we've never solved before. And for me, the icon, the thing that just hits me so strongly, is this business of plastic straws versus paper straws. Okay? A plastic straw is just better. It just works better than a paper straw.
I agree with that.
You can chew on it. It's great. It holds its shape. A paper straw, it's nothing. So what should we do? Ban plastic straws? They're horrible. How can you even think of using a plastic straw? You're a bad, not progressive person. No, we will use the technology in the paper utensil industry to create even better straws.
Right.
And there will be a time coming very soon where people will forget about the whole problem because we will have solved it. And are you saying we should apply government money to make better straws? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying.
You know, I feel like we have already gone through this with light bulbs, because I remember when you had regulation back in 2006 that said you have to use compact fluorescent light bulbs, and those light bulbs were terrible. And yeah, look at that. And then now you go and you get light bulbs in the Home Depot, and they're incredible. And that was just forced by regulation, that innovation.
Well, yes. And of course, everybody benefited. And I remind you, perhaps you know this, about the cowman and the farmer. The cowman and the farmer should be friends.
Yes.
It's in the song.
I just saw Oklahoma, so that's top of mind.
Yeah. So people who raise food depend on the internet to plant all the seeds, to get extraordinary modern seeds that are beneficially genetically modified. We've been able enough to feed 4 or 5 or 10 times as many people as we could 2 centuries ago because of improvements in agricultural technology. But that technology was developed with government money.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing.
Right.
That's a thing. And everybody who develops that technology in Silicon Valley I've met them. They all eat food. And that food is produced by farmers, generally in the breadbasket of the world, which is here in the United States and Canada. So the farmer and the cowman should be friends, and we should all be getting along and working together. Now, I think all the time about how we just celebrated the 50th anniversary of landing on the moon. In 2010 dollars, that's about $150 billion. Somewhat more in modern dollars. Okay, you can get a lot done with $150 billion. Okay, so for example, I'm not saying this is the answer, I'm just saying for example. There's a company trying to do very, very hot fusion. This is not cold fusion, this is very hot fusion. Since I was a kid, since I was in engineering school, people have been trying to do fusion by shooting a beam of protons into a hydrogen that has an extra neutron. Has not worked. But these guys and gals have an idea to use boron, which you find in 20 mule team boron.
Just happen to have that laying there.
I just happen to have it to produce 3 alpha particles, the same alpha particles we get inside the sun. And they believe they could do it for $30 billion. And they have this scheme to raise the $30 billion with derivative technology that they've got by this new battery storage thing and this new capacitor and this new stuff. No. If we spent 5 times that kind of money, we could see whether or not this technology worked. And if it did, it would change the world.
Right.
So this whole idea of just wringing your hands, well, we can't eat meat, we can't do this, we can't. No. Let's go, people. This is the United States. Let's innovate. And so, yes, air transportation has to be solved. Ground transportation has to be addressed. We have to electrify all ground transportation.
Right.
We have to probably electrify air. Let's go.
Yes. And I will say one more thing on that note, which is that we also have to then transfer that technology and make it accessible to places like the Bahamas and the Dominican Republic and Bangladesh.
When you go to the developing world, everybody has a mobile phone.
Yep.
Because that technology became cheap enough. But bear in mind, it was started
here
with largely investment in the military. That's what led to the internet. That's what led to all this efficiency in data transmission. It's not a bad thing. It's a thing. Let's work together, you everybody. We can change the world.
All right, Bill Nye, thank you very much.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.